We're thrilled to introduce this next session called How to Identify, Implement, and Monitor Systems in Your Business. This session will challenge you to redefine the way you approach business operations and give you new ideas for systems that you may have never even thought of before. Let's dive in.
So, what is a system? Let's start with that. A system is a repeatable process for getting something done that delivers predictable results. So the two key words there are repeatable and predictable. If we can solve for those two things, then we have an effective system. So that's really the goal. When we can generate predictable results, then we can scale, we can grow. So what does a good system accomplish? Well, it creates a few things for you. It creates structure, and your team needs structure. They crave it, okay? Even if you don't. A lot of us, we're entrepreneurs, we're known for winging it. We're known for just kind of figuring it out on the fly. We're known for being able to solve problems on the fly. But if you want to grow your team, they need predictability and they need structure. A good system also allows us to achieve consistent outcomes. And it's really hard to grow or be profitable or scale if you can't predict outcomes of your actions. So we need that predictable, consistent outcome every time we execute on a system. And another thing that a good system does is it gives you a standard that you can hold people accountable to. And that's super important. How many here have ever sort of verbalized a system, maybe to an employee? Hey, I want you to do it this way or do it that way. We verbalized it, and then they didn't do it the way we said, and we come back to them and we say, well, why didn't that work? Why didn't you do it the way I said? And it turns out they heard something completely different. Or we don't remember what was said. We're going off of our memory. I think I said this, you think I said that, I did what I thought you said. There's all of this like conflict and opportunity for things to break down. And there's no way for us to hold people accountable when they don't follow through on our direction, if we don't put them in a system, in a structure. And so that's really important. Maybe is the most important part as it relates to growing our teams, is we have to have these documented systems and processes to hold people accountable to. So, do you ever feel like this when you're like thinking about your business operations? Does it ever feel like, oh my word, I want to tear my hair out, nothing's working, everything's disorganized, I hate this? Well, the key to reducing that kind of feeling is through creating systems and processes. Now, a little terminology here. We talk about systems, processes, procedures. These are all interchangeable terms. They all basically mean the same thing. So you might be telling yourself right now, I'm not very good at creating. That's not in my wheelhouse. What if you've never actually created a system? You don't know where to start. Or what if you tried to create a system and it didn't work and you just think that you suck at it? Well, would it be useful for you to have a process, a framework that you could use repeatedly so that you could actually get good at creating systems? A system for creating systems. How cool would that be? All right, so that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to walk you through 5 simple steps in developing a system that you can use over and over, and we're actually going to go through this process live together, okay? So you're going to have an opportunity, if you want, right now to create a system that you can walk out of here with and go implement in your business, and it's going to be useful for you. And this is a good exercise because it's going to get you into the rhythm of identifying problems and going through this methodical process of developing a solution that other people can use. So start right now to think about a problem that you have in your business that you want to solve, all right? And we'll be going through these steps, and my advice to you would be start with something simple. So think about some simple little irritating problem maybe that you have in your business right now. And by the time we're done with this conversation, you will be able to have a system developed that you'll be able to take home and implement into your business. So that's kind of the goal here. So we're going to go through these steps. The first step is what? So Really what this is the title of the system. And when we start to document these things, we want our systems to be very clear and identifiable by other people. So the title of your system is kind of important. Basically, it's a description of what you're trying to accomplish. So let's use an example, all right? Let's say I notice that my technicians aren't keeping my trucks clean and organized. Anybody have that problem? Okay, yeah, that's super irritating, right? It seems like such a simple thing to solve. What do we try to do to solve that? We tell them, okay, sometimes we get violent. Excuse me. But we tell them, right? We say, hey, keep your truck clean. Keep your truck clean. We get on them when they don't do it. But the problem really is that they don't have a system for doing that, or if they do, we're not holding them accountable to it. So I notice my techs aren't keeping my trucks clean. That's a problem. I need to develop a solution to that. So start with the what. The what might be the title of the system, keeping your work truck clean and organized. Nice and simple, right? So when your employees are looking through their list of things that they're supposed to execute on, it's going to be really clear and obvious what the end result of that system is going to be. So clear and short and to the point. Now, as you document these things, a lot of people ask me this: should I create like written documents or should I create videos? The answer is yes. You should do both. Okay? Ultimately, you're going to want to have both. You're going to want to have text, documentation, and videos. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can deliver both of those a little later on in the talk. But if you can only do one, if you only have time to do one or the other, I recommend videos. And we'll get into the statistics on why that matters a little bit later. So, pro tip though, when you're creating this system, so in this case, keeping your work truck clean and organized, make sure that your document and your video have exactly the same title. We want consistency and continuity in formats. That's just going to help everybody stay more organized and find what they need and learn what they need more effectively. So that's step one. Pretty simple, right? Figure out what it is, give it a nice, clean, clear title. Step two. This is the why. This is the reason that we're putting this system in place. And why is that important? Well, if you want consistent execution on your systems, the people that you're asking to follow these things, they need to understand why. They need to have a reason. What is the ultimate outcome? What is the benefit? If you don't give them a reason, then psychologically, they don't have as much of an incentive to follow through, right? And that's true of all of us. If we know why we're being asked to do something, we're far more likely to follow through on it. So when your employees understand why you want them to do a specific thing a specific way, they're more likely to comply. And they need to understand what the benefit is. Because every system is developed for a benefit, right? We're trying to get an ideal outcome. And so we want the people that are going to execute on these things to understand why it's important. What are they going to get out of it? What's in it for them? What's in it for the customer? What's in it for the business? So let's go back to our example system, keeping our vehicles clean and organized. So the why might be something like a clean, organized vehicle will help you work more efficiently. It'll also reflect well on the company, allowing us to sell more jobs at higher prices. And both of these things will help you earn a higher production bonus. So there you go. That's a pretty clear benefit to the individual that we're actually asking to execute this system. So this is a really important point here. So let's go back, because I told you we're going to sort of live create a system right now. So I skipped this in step one. But if you have something in mind that you want to try to solve, go ahead and write that down. What's the what? What's the thing that you're going to try to solve? And if you've already gotten that written down, then next write down your why. And you can polish this up later. It doesn't have to be perfect. But get some thoughts down on what the why is, what the benefit of following through on this system is. All right, that's going to take us to step 3, the when and the where. Now this is really important. It's simple, but important. So when we talk about the when, that's the details on timing. When is this system supposed to be executed? So some systems are recurring tasks. They need to be done maybe every day, every morning, or every evening. Are they supposed to be performed at a specific day, specific time? You want to be really clear on that. So for instance, every other Wednesday at 8 a.m. That's crystal clear, right? Nobody can mess that up. And if they do, you've got something very clear to hold them accountable to, right? If they did it on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. instead of Wednesday, now you can go to them and you can say, this was the process. You didn't follow it. Let's have a conversation about why. So we want to be specific about that. Now, sometimes multiple systems work hand in hand, right? So one system maybe triggers another, or they need to be done at the same time or something like that. And so we also want to reference any interconnected systems. Now let's talk about the where. The where is important because some systems get executed in a specific place, for instance, your shop or your office or inside the vehicle. And some systems are triggered by different locations, so job sites or supply houses or things like that. So we also want to be really clear on the where. So let's go back to our example of our vehicle organization system. So you might say, perform this task every Friday afternoon at the shop along with your vehicle maintenance checklist. So is there any ambiguity there? Are there any question marks as to when I should do this, where it should be done, what the frequency is? No, because what we've covered is every Friday afternoon, so we know when. And we know where, because we said at the shop. And we've also connected it to another system. We referenced our vehicle maintenance checklist. So see how those two things are interconnected, and we reference those back and forth. And so that way, you're sort of creating a breadcrumb trail for your people so that they can follow through and take care of all of the systems that are connected to each other. So let's take a minute now. If you're working on developing your on-the-fly system, take a minute and think about when you need this thing done, what time, what day, what frequency, and then where it needs to be executed. And you want to document that and be really clear. So step 4. Step 4 is the who. Are you guys picking up on a trend here? Who, what, when, where, why. That's basically what we're talking about, right? But it's just such a simple way, such a simple format to apply system development that it just works really well. So who? What do we mean by who? Well, we're talking about who owns the system, who's responsible for carrying it out. Now, some systems are owned by an individual, and then some multiple people own. So we want to designate that. Now, a couple of key points here. When we talk about an individual, a system that applies to an individual, we want to make sure that it doesn't apply to an actual person, but a role in your company, a seat on the org chart. So we wouldn't say that this system belongs to Chuck. We would say this system belongs to the operations manager, who at this moment just happens to be Chuck. And so every system that you create should belong to a place or a seat on your org chart. And then that way, as staff turns over, as your business grows, as your org chart grows, those responsibilities and those systems follow that seat throughout the growth of your business. So it could be more than one person. So for example, you might say all crew leaders should perform this process every morning before leaving the shop. So again, that's tied to a seat on the org chart, not to a person or an individual. Or it could be a single seat in your org chart serving in their role. So for instance, your production manager should perform this system each morning before the crews leave. So we want to provide clarity there as we're crafting our systems. Who is responsible for it? who owns it, what seat on the org chart owns that particular system. So if we go back to our truck maintenance example that we've been kind of working on, we would say all this applies to all crew leaders, okay? So there's no ambiguity there. Again, we can hold people accountable. If you're a crew leader, or if this system didn't get performed and the truck's a mess, now we know who to hold responsible, right? Because it's very clearly identified in the system. So if you're still working on your system, go ahead and take a minute and write down who owns this task that you're putting together, this problem that you're trying to solve.
What step does that go?
Step 4. Okay. So step 5, the how. So this is where most of us start when we're trying to develop systems. The first thing we do is we sit down and we try to like write out how it's done. And we go step by step and we get super detailed and we've missed all that other stuff, all the stuff that we've already covered. And then we try to like roll this thing out, this checklist or whatever, and nobody knows who's supposed to do it, who's going to hold who accountable, when it's supposed to be done, where the results are going, who's keeping tabs on it. So really this phase shouldn't happen until all of that other stuff is done. Because we've essentially created a groundwork or a foundation that now we can start applying these steps, the how. So this is where you outline the details of exactly what you want done. And it can be as simple as step 1, step 2, step 3. And here's a great way to generate a process, the how. If you're not good at that, if it just doesn't come to your mind easily, go do the thing. Go do the thing the way you want it done. And as you do it, write down what you're doing or record yourself on a video doing it. And a lot of times that can really help you get more clarity about what your expectations are for other people when you want them to do that thing. Because nobody knows how to do it better than you, right? Generally, especially early on when we're developing our systems. So leverage that. Use your processes that you're currently doing just on autopilot and automatically, and use those as the framework for your step-by-step processes or your checklists or things of that nature. Now, a question I get asked a lot is, how much detail do I add? Anybody here ever created a system and looked at it and realized there's like 49 steps to this thing? And it's going to take 3 hours to get this truck cleaned when it really should be a 20-minute job. Anybody ever done that? Way overboard on your systems. What happens when we do that? People don't implement. They get overwhelmed, they get frustrated, they get stuck, and they just don't do it. We want to avoid that. So how much detail do we add? The answer is really, it depends on the task. The key is to start somewhere and refine and iterate. So don't feel like when you create a system that it's done, because it's not. It's never going to be done. Your business is going to grow. The needs of your business are going to change. Your understanding of what your expectations are or what your goals are going to change. So think about your systems and processes as living, breathing, organic things that are going to be in a constant state of refinement for as long as you own your business. A good rule of thumb, though, is to err on the side of less detail. And I want to share something with you that I learned about after. I don't have a slide for it because I learned about this after I put this presentation together, but it's called Gall's Law. Anybody ever heard of that? Gall's Law, G-A-L-L is the guy's name. So he's a famous statistician and systems scientist, basically. And he said, a complex system that works is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that worked. A complex system designed from scratch never works and cannot be patched to make it work. You have to start over with a simple system. And I love that statement. And I'm glad it's a law because it's absolutely true, and it's been true in my experience. Simpler is always better. It's much easier to start simple with a bare bones system and add detail as needed to get the desired outcome than it is to start with something complex and then try to, pull things away from it to get it to a level where you can get an outcome but still get compliance. And that's really what we need, right? We need to find that sweet spot where we can get the outcome we want, but we're also going to get consistent compliance, consistent execution from our people. So simple systems are more efficient, you're more likely to get compliance, and it's easy to add detail rather than take it away. So simpler is always better. Now, this is where video can be really helpful. People learn and retain through video far more effectively than they do text, especially the modern audience that we're trying to work with. One study found that just after 7 days of a training session, the average employee has forgotten 65% of the material they covered after 7 days. Anybody noticed that happening in their business? Yeah, a lot of wasted time, a lot of ineffective training. And it's because, A, we're trying to cram too much information into people's heads too quickly. And B, we're not necessarily using a format that is going to be best for them to be able to retain it. Now, a different statistic said that after 6 months, that number, the percentage of forgotten material grows to 90%. So that's how rapidly people forget this stuff, especially when we're asking them to just read a bunch of text. So if you pair relevant visuals with learning information, retention levels rise to an impressive 65%. So pairing some video or some images or shifting completely over to video and images is documented and proven to be a more effective way for people to learn and retain. So that's why I said earlier on, if you can only do one, start with video. Ideally, we have both, but start with video. It's more effective. It makes sense, though. People tend to remember about 20% of what they read, but they remember about 80% of what they see. So we want to leverage visuals as much as we can. So go ahead and throw a couple of steps on your how list if you're working on your system right now. Okay, got a couple minutes left, so I want to cruise through the rest of this here. Where do we start? It depends on your intentions. Great question to ask yourself is, what do you want to stop doing? Brandon showed the graphic of the $20 an hour task. I'm sure every single one of us has caught ourselves doing one of those things recently, right? So what do you want to stop doing? What do you want your role in your company to be? Start with systems that are going to allow you to gain freedom from that thing. So, for example, if your goal is to get out of the field, you should only focus on production systems. And that's it. Put all of your focus on those. Develop those systems so that you can replace yourself in the truck as fast as possible. So start with how to do the thing, then move to how to solve problem X that's associated with the thing. So you can just kind of progressively work your way through your systems to get yourself to a goal that you have as far as your role in the company. And the key is to just stay in that lane until it's done. So don't go working on your sales systems. Don't go working on your marketing systems if your goal is to get off the truck. Get your production systems done first. Okay, so just to recap, we have 5 stages here, and you guys are familiar with this: maps, marketing, admin, production, sales. Start with production and get as many of those systems done as you can. Next, move on to admin. Then sales, then marketing, lastly, executive. Now, you might find that you have to cycle back and refine systems from some of the previous stages, because things break sometimes as you grow, or your needs change, like we discussed. So don't feel like you can't cycle back and revise things as needed. But in general, in order of priority, this is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck in terms of developing systems. So a couple of pro tips really quick. Remember to assign systems to a role on an org chart, not to an individual person. It should never be a person's name that says who owns the system. It should always be a seat on the org chart. Start with video and then do documentation if you can only do one or the other. And remember, your systems are never done. They're a living, breathing, sort of organic facet of your business. You can do this. We just walked through how simple it is. It's 5 steps. This is really easy. There is in Basecamp. There's a resource. It's called the Systems Engine, and it's a breakdown of the steps we just went through. There's a worksheet and a guidebook, so you can download that and use that as a frame of reference as you start developing your systems. It's called the Systems Engine, I believe. It's a PDF, and there's a worksheet and a guidebook that goes along with it. It's really just kind of like a distillation of what we just covered. So this isn't super sexy. It's not very exciting, but it's necessary. And if you came in here feeling like you weren't capable of leveling your business up when it comes to systems, don't think that about yourself. You are capable. You can do it. We just walked through how simple it is. A lot of us, all we need is a framework to work off of. And this is one that you can use repeatedly over and over and over again to solve problems in your business in a scalable way that's going to give you predictable, repeatable outcomes. So that's what I got for you guys. Thank you for your time. Hope that was helpful.
Thank you for joining Coach Caleb for this session. We hope the insights shared today have sparked inspiration and equipped you with the tools to streamline your business operations effectively. If you're eager to continue mastering the art of systemization, visit conquernow.com for more.